Hello and welcome to the Win Daily 2020 Draft and NBA Free Agency Fantasy Preview. My name is Michael Raziel. I am here with my man DFS Ghost, and we are here to break down all of the news, notes, and rumblings for you. DFS Ghost, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well, bro. I have the pleasure of being on air with you for a bunch of different sports, but this one is by far my favorite. Happy to be back on here covering some NBA with you.
And I love doing this one with you, Ghost Man, because you enjoy this so much, and I enjoy talking to you, and you have a blast with it. So we are here. We're going to be breaking down some of the stuff that's been going on from a fantasy, from a little bit of a betting perspective, to give everybody just kind of an understanding of what the heck we can look forward to. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's kind of sad. But the offseason in the NBA is kind of a little bit more enjoyable. I know everybody says it every year, and I'll be honest, I'm one of those guys. I thought it was way cooler when KD went to the Nets than anything really Kevin Durant did on the Golden State Warriors. I thought it injects some sort of energy. It injects something. So if you want, make sure everybody, windailysports.com/chat. You get 7 free days in our expert Discord chat. We're crushing the NFL schedule. We're crushing the NFL season. We got your sports betting picks. We have your fantasy plays, but NBA is right around the corner. Ghost, what is the presumed date for return for the NBA? December what?
Right now we have December 22nd.
Okay, cool. All right, well, we are very excited for it. We have the draft coming up November 18th, only a couple days away, so we are excited for it. But let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. We had Chris Paul. I guess it was kind of like brought up a couple days ago, and everyone like semi-confirmed it. And then today, when we started to we were allowed to make trades. We were allowed to do some stuff. Chris Paul to the Suns. We have a first in 2022. We have Ricky Rubio. We have Kelly Oubre. We have Ty Jerome, and we have some guy that I can't pronounce his name. I assume he is just in there for salary. Chris Paul going to the Suns. Everybody thought Chris Paul was done. He was trash. He was useless over on the Rockets. Gets traded for Russell Westbrook. They get a bunch of picks. It's crazy what Sam Presti has done. I have a little bit of a hot take on Sam Presti in a little bit, but Chris Paul to the Suns. Let's talk about that just from an enjoyment standpoint. I think that'll be fun, but Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, I don't know. Do the Suns actually have a chance now?
I think the Suns make the playoffs. I don't know if this is the first time that somebody's going to be saying this. Probably not. I mean, considering that the trade deadline started about 5 hours ago at noon Eastern time. But first take from our Win Daily Sports team here is that the Phoenix Suns will be making the playoffs, and Devin Booker will be a top 10 player in the league next year. How fun is this going to be, being able to see CP3 run a pick and roll with DeAndre Ayton? Oh, man, I cannot wait to watch this offense. DeAndre Ayton, Devin Booker with the veteran leadership of CP3 there. They're going to be an electric team to watch next year.
It should be fun, man. I'm looking forward to it. Devin Booker, I mean, we saw what he did in the bubble, what the Suns did in the bubble. And I'm kind of worried, right? The Suns were pretty bad last year. They really shouldn't have been in the bubble, but whatever. They made it there. They let them go there. And they actually ended up going, 8-0, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or 7-1. They won all their games or almost did. And I'm a little worried that this is the Suns kind of jumping the gun a bit, right? Like they saw what happened in that 8-game stretch. They saw how incredible it was and how much fun it was. But are you a little worried that they're like, oh, we might have a chance. Let's go grab Chris Paul, who's like kind of a million years old on a ridiculous contract. And yeah, they're kind of trading away some of their assets. Like Kelly Oubre, solid, okay, whatever. Ricky Rubio, he's been the same player for the last like 15 years, it feels like. Are you a little worried? I mean, I know you think the Suns make the playoffs, but to me, it's like, I don't know, man. Like, let's take a step back and remember what the Suns were. It feels like 18 months ago now for the rest of the season and not just those 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a look at what they were looking like in the grand scheme of things of that season, this was a team that underachieved. I mean, considering you have what I think is a top 10 talent in the NBA and Devin Booker on your roster, obviously it's playoffs or bust. I mean, are they going to contend in the West with the Battle of LA, and then I think this season you have a healthy Golden State Warriors team. So good luck with that with the Splash Brothers back, and who knows what they're going to end up doing with their TPE, and of course with that number 2 pick of which we're going to get into in a little bit. But are the Phoenix Suns going to contend here in the short term? Likely not, but I do foresee them making the playoffs, and that is huge for them in the long term. You have a bona fide superstar in Devin Booker, who people forget just how young he is. Mm-hmm. So getting some playoff experience under his belt, and really letting them know, like, hey, we're committed to you as our franchise player, and I think it's kind of a signal that they're sending him, like, hey, we're not going to let you do what guys like Bradley Beal are doing right now and Giannis, where they're kind of, deciding their own fate. I think it's going to be a mutual feeling here where Devin Booker wants to bring people to Phoenix to play with him rather than him leaving and teaming up with other guys. So I absolutely love this move for Phoenix here, making Devin Booker a priority and letting them know, like, hey, we're not just going to waste your prime years or under 30 years, anything like that. We're going to surround you with some stars. And I don't know if there's a better mentor for a player that's still in the league right now in Devin Booker for CP3 there. I mean, you got the point guard that's going to be able to absolutely show him the ropes. So really looking forward to that backcourt duo.
Right. And I think it's really interesting from, what we saw out of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander during his rookie year on the Clippers, and then going to the Thunder, where he also teams up, for lack of a better term, with CP3. And it's all of a sudden like, wait a second, this guy's actually pretty good. Like, he knows what the hell he's doing. I'm curious. Again, that was year 1 to year 2 for SGA. I'm curious what Devin Booker, again, dude's like 26. He's been in the league like 18 years at this point. I don't know how the hell that happens, but that's the NBA for you. So with that, like, how much, going to that fantasy aspect, going to that betting aspect a little bit, how are you looking at this Phoenix Suns team now from okay, you think they're going to make the playoffs, but from a fantasy perspective, how much better does Devin Booker get? Does CP3 still get the same run? Does he still get the same, opportunities there in the Suns, or is he just going to strictly be a facilitator like we've kind of seen the last couple seasons anyway?
I think it's going to be closer to what CP3 was doing in the last half of last season in the shortened pandemic season, of course. As SGA started to flourish there, shout out to my fellow Canadian, of course. But you really saw him taking the reins on offense, and CP3 kind of being the distributor, facilitator on the floor, exactly like how you described it, which is pretty much what he's been throughout the entirety of his career. I mean, early in his prime, he was a guy that could score. He could drop 25 a game, no problem, even scoring 30 plus in games last season, and even when he was with Houston. But right now, I don't think that's really his game. I do see a huge bump for Devin Booker with CP3 out there. I just think it's going to open up the floor for him a ton, because now they have a legitimate pick and roll offense where CP3 is a big upgrade over Ricky Rubio. I really like Ricky Rubio as a player, but he's not CP3, right? So people having to guard the paint now with DeAndre Ayton. Hopefully he's 100% healthy heading into December and into the new season. It's going to open up the floor a lot for Devin Booker, and I absolutely loved what they were doing with him throughout the rotations. As the season rolled on, you really saw Devin Booker playing 12 minutes in these opening quarters, where from minutes 7 to 12 and even, minutes 1 to 3 in the start of the second quarter, he was pretty much out there on the court alone. Whereas now, when you have CP3 back there that can, kind of come in midway through that second quarter, where you could end up taking Devin Booker off from minute, 5 to 8, for example, that's where Devin Booker could really flourish, because he's going to be out there playing against pretty much bench players and stuff like that. That's where he'll get the majority of his work done there. But even when he's on the floor with CP3, he can go back to being a spot-up shooter and really just end up draining the bucket all day long. So absolutely love this spot for Devin Booker with a huge bump to CP3 as well.
It should be fun. I think it is going to be a blast. Shout out Phoenix. I lived in Phoenix for a couple months. Incredible city. Loved everything about it. So hopefully they get a team, because, man, yeah, Devin Booker is too good. I think it's a cool move too, right? It's kind of like one of those, like, oh, that's just kind of fun. Like, I'm happy to see something like that happen to a team like Phoenix, who haven't been relevant in what feels like the last 10, 15 years at this point, obviously, since Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire were there, right? And Sean Marion and Boris Diaw then. So that was a lot of fun, but we'll see. I think it will be a blast. And, man, Ricky Rubio, what if he learned how to take a jump shot? Like, how cool would how good would Ricky Rubio have been if he just learned how to, shoot a basketball? But that's another conversation for another time. And again, just want to reiterate, the Thunder get another first-round pick in this trade, 2022 first-round pick. So I think that's kind of what Chris Paul only has 2 years left on his contract, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yes.
Sam Presti, he seems like a smart guy. Seems like a smart guy. I guess let's flip it to the other side, right? Like, we thought the media, people in, the NBA world thought that the Thunder were going to kind of suck, and that didn't really turn out. They probably could have / should have beaten the Rockets in the the bubble playoffs, right? Like that was fun. For some reason, they had SGA throw the ball out of bounds, which we all kind of saw was like, hey, what are you doing the first time?
Yeah.
Then they get the timeout and then they do it again and they lose that game. Would have been cool to see them win that. But Chris Paul leaves. They're getting, a couple dudes back. Kelly Oubre, I guess, is like the biggest name. Ricky Rubio is the biggest name, but Kelly Oubre might have actually the best. I don't know. He's the best basketball player, whatever at this point. How do you think the Thunder look at this with the understanding that it looks like Steven Adams is also going to get traded here pretty soon if they can find a trade partner for them? Probably not a first round pick, but probably going to get something for him. How do you look at the Thunder moving forward with the assumption, let's say, that Steven Adams won't be there?
This is an A plus trade for the OKC Thunder here. It's hard enough to find somebody, a trade partner to get rid of CP3's contract like that. And I honestly think when they ended up getting rid of Russell Westbrook for him 1-for-1, it was more so that they wanted to, ditch Russell Westbrook's contract more than ever and kind of hit the reset button there. Then they get CP3, they get the emergence of SGA. Gallinari's all of a sudden a point forward, knocking down threes, and they're like, wait a second, we're actually a good basketball team. What is going on here? Why are we 4th or 5th in the West? And I think in this offseason, this is a brilliant move by them. Gallinari is pretty much a foregone conclusion to end up going to a contender. I could really see him, fitting well with Miami, or you never know what the Warriors are going to end up pulling off. So, but I would love to see Gallinari there with the Miami Heat. Of course, if they don't get Giannis, which is a whole nother story. But if Giannis or Bradley Beal were not to go to Miami, I would love for them to get a quote unquote consolation prize, if we could even call them that, of Danilo Gallinari there in Miami. But of course, now OKC has a direct replacement in Kelly Oubre Jr. They have an athletic 3-and-D wing there to support SGA and on the sides of the court. You have Ricky Rubio, that's pretty much a very similar playing style to CP3. So they kind of scaled back a bit in the sense that they know what their long-term goals are here. Getting another first-round pick. I mean, by now they're probably up to like 600 first-round picks in the next 5 years at this point. There, maybe plus or minus one, but I kind of lost count after they've hit the 100 mark there. So I absolutely love this trade by OKC. You get a direct replacement for Gallinari, who they're pretty much going to lose in any day now in Kelly Oubre Jr. Ricky Rubio is a younger version of CP3, and he's going to be able to do a similar job to what he was doing back there with SGA in that backcourt. So absolutely love this move for OKC moving forward. And they're primed to contend in 3 to 5 years from now. They know exactly when their window is, and it's certainly not in the 2020-2021 season. Like I was saying before, you still have the Lakers and the Clippers that are going to be legit out there in the West, and the Warriors are coming back to full health. So if OKC was going to go all in, and you know what, they wanted to get Bradley Beal and Giannis and really like trade away these million first-round picks that they have to really go all in right now, then I would say, okay, you might want to keep a player like Chris Paul, but being able to shed that contract off their books and, really keep their eyes on the prize here, which is their window is going to be in 3 to 5 years when Stephen Curry is nearly 35 years old and Klay Thompson's getting a bit older and the Warriors dynasty is slightly coming to an end. Maybe LeBron will be out of the league at that point, but that's only 5 years from now. So he'll probably go another 15 at this point, but they know exactly when their window is. Absolutely love this trade for OKC.
Yeah. I mean, considering what they traded to get Chris Paul, right? They traded Russell Westbrook, got Chris Paul and a bunch of picks, and then turn around and trade Chris Paul for a bunch of players and another pick. I mean, shout out Sam Presti. I think, he's obviously done a pretty good job at, accumulating, I think is a good word to use, accumulating a lot of first round picks. And to speak of another first round pick, they take Dennis Schroeder as well. Shout out Dennis Schroeder. My fantasy basketball team name is Schroeder's Cat. So makes me laugh every time I look at it. But Dennis Schroeder for Danny Green and the 28th pick. I'm seeing in some places, yes, Danny Green, in other places, this hasn't been confirmed yet, but it looks like it is going through. So they get the 28th pick for this year. So they have the 25th and the 28th pick this year. As I said, they got a 2022 first round pick in the Chris Paul trade, along with all those other players. So Dennis Schroeder, Danny Green, kind of just flip-flopping teams. How do you feel about either of them? We'll get to the Lakers in a second with a couple more of the free agency moves that's coming with the Lakers. But Dennis Schroeder going to the Lakers, kind of taking over that spot for Danny Green. How do you feel about that and LeBron?
Great trade for the Lakers. We were saying it throughout the bubble, and of course, the NBA playoffs where they ended up being champions, that the Lakers needed a secondary ball handler. I mean, as great as Alex Caruso was throughout that run, and we had our fun on air picking on him and letting guys know like the Caruso is here to stay, playing him 25 to 27 minutes a night in our NBA Showdown lineups, of course. But when it's a long season now, we're hoping to have a full season, in fact. So Lakers are going to need a secondary ball handler off the bench, and a guy that could score is just a bonus. So Dennis Schroeder brings the best of both worlds there, takes a bit of a load off of LeBron, and of course, if Rondo doesn't end up re-signing, Dennis Schroeder is actually an upgrade there. So absolutely love this move for the Lakers. A 28th overall pick really doesn't do them that much. Having LeBron and AD on your team, you're coming off a championship win. You don't want a guy that's going to need, 2, 3, maybe even 5 years to develop. You got LeBron James on your team. You're trading away as many first-round picks or as many guys as you can to get as many starters in your lineup as possible, or guys that could score off the bench. And it's exactly what Dennis Schroeder does here. So Danny Green ended up being the odd man out there, primarily because of salary reasons. They needed to balance things out. But whether his playoff run had something to do with it, where he ended up missing a couple threes and this and that, we don't know. We're not in the Lakers locker room, but regardless of that, this is a big upgrade for the Lakers, giving LeBron some much needed help back there in that Lakers backcourt. And for OKC, again, I mean, they're not in win now mode, right? So last season was kind of, the asterisks on their plan, where they're like, hey, why are we the 5th seed in the West right now? Warriors lose their whole team to injuries. You got Portland that's underachieving, and of course they lost Joseph Nurkic, and Hassan Whiteside's playing like hot garbage, and they're underachieving. And it's like, man, why are we the 5th seed in the West right now? This is not what Sam Presti wanted. So at that point, are they tanking? Absolutely not. But it's more so they're keeping the eyes on the prize, exactly like what I was saying before. Dennis Schroeder is a guy that's going to help them win now. That's not exactly what they want to do. They don't want to end up being an 8th seed in the West just to get bounced in the first round by, the Warriors, the Clippers, or the Lakers, or whoever ends up taking that 1 seed, right? So getting another first round pick in the process, that's the way that I see this trade. They're ended up trading Dennis Schroeder for a guy that's likely not in their long-term plans, for another first round pick, a pick that they get packaged with one of their other 600 first round picks to move up in any draft year that they want at this point. I'm pretty sure they could move up in the 2040 draft if they want to, with the amount of first rounders that they have right now. So packaging that pick to be able to move up in this year's draft would be a great move for them. And of course, Danny Green brings that veteran leadership that they lost with CP3. So the 2 veterans that they acquire in Ricky Rubio and Danny Green, trading away CP3 and Dennis Schroeder, is it that much of a downgrade? I mean, is it a downgrade? Yes, but is it that much of one? I can argue no. I mean, given what their plan is right now, I love this move, and acquiring another first round pick in the process, A+ trade again for Sam Presti.
Yeah, I think it is. Dude knows what he's doing. Like it is pretty cool to kind of watch. Now, again, I think he gets an incredible amount of praise, as he should, for all these moves that he's been able to do. But he also had Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony on a team, couldn't really do anything with it. He also had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden on a team, trades away James Harden, loses Kevin Durant. So, like, obviously he gets a lot of praise, as he should, but he also we should remember that this dude had 3 MVPs on his team at one point, wasn't able to keep them together, traded away James Harden for practically nothing, and also lost out on the Kevin Durant sweepstakes when he was literally on your team. So again, there's some positives. There's a lot of positives, but let's not forget about the negatives. Some of that stuff does figure itself out, but shout out to him. I mean, a team in a area of the country like Oklahoma City, you're not really expected to have ultra super mega stars wanting to come play for you at all times. So understanding, hey, we have to have all these picks. We have to then make sure we pick right, and then sign these dudes to crazy long-term contracts like they did with Russell Westbrook. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, unfortunately, like in Kevin Durant and James Harden's case, it doesn't. So still pretty darn cool, but we'll see what happens. And yeah, I like the point. Danny Green coming with that veteran presence, the championship pedigree. What, he has 3 now, 4? I don't even actually know how many the dude has. So shout out to him for what he's done. What he has 2 with the 2 or 3 with the. How many does Danny Green have? 5 rings? No, that's impossible, right? He's got 2 with. He's got.
I want to say 2 with the Spurs, the Raptors, right? And the Lakers. I want to say 4 total, rings. But I'm checking right now.
Yeah, please fact check me first. I want to say he has 5, but I don't think he was there for. How cool would it be if Danny Green had one for the thumb? Like, that would be so awesome. Like, shout out Danny Green. That is incredible. What do we got? What do we got?
Uh, he's.
That
I'm looking now. Can't find it. They're including. Man, they're including. He's got 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Shout out Danny Green.
4.
He's got 4 rings. I don't think he cares wherever he plays at this point. Pay the man money. He's won enough. He's good.
Yeah.
So shout out to him for that. And he's been a pretty important piece of all 4 of them, right? Like we saw down the stretch with the Lakers, it was what it was. But I think they needed him, obviously, to get to that point in some capacity throughout the season. I think that part's very important. As you said, we're not on the inside of the locker room, but still something to pay attention to. The last trade that I do want to talk about, we have Bruce Brown going to the Nets for Dan Zan's Musma. I don't know. This one just screams, and a 2021 second round pick. This one screams something about salary. This one screams, hey, we're doing something. And to segue from that is Russell Westbrook and James Harden both said, peace. We're done with the Rockets. Daryl Morey's gone. Mike D'Antoni's gone. They want to be gone too. PJ Tucker's coming out talking about how much he hates everybody on that team, which tell me you're surprised PJ Tucker hates everybody, right? But Harden has come out and pretty much said, hey, I want to go to the Rock, or I want to go to the Nets or the 76ers. Hopefully he picks the Nets. I think that would be more fun. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, all on the Nets. That sounds terrible. That just sounds like awful, awful, terrible. I wouldn't want anything to do with it. How do you feel about that, though? Let's say it happens. What does it take to trade James Harden to the Nets? And would that even be enjoyable basketball?
Well, the first thing I want to say is, hey, Brooklyn, next time you announce a trade on the opening day of trades and it's Bruce Brown, people are going to have another issue here. So
yes.
when you're rumored to be acquiring James Harden and you announce that you just made a trade on maybe 5 or 10 minutes after it opens up at noon Eastern time, it better not be a name like Bruce Brown ever again. But anyway,
hey, shout out Bruce Brown. He's in the league. I'm not. I can't say too much.
Man, oh man, that was that. When I saw Brooklyn Nets have made a trade, I was like, oh boy, here we go. And then Bruce Brown, I was like, okay, this is the kind of day that it's going to be. But I don't see James Harden going to Brooklyn. And I know right now it's contrary to what a lot of analysts are saying and what we're hearing from guys around the league and girls alike. I just don't see it working. And I really do think that the guy that's going to put a stop to that, believe it or not, is Kyrie Irving. He had an issue playing with LeBron James. First of all, how do you have an issue playing with the best basketball player in the league right now and arguably the best player of all time? We're not going to get into that right now.
You said arguably, so you gave
I said arguably.
You're good.
So
you said arguably, so we're good.
I give myself the out there. So arguably the best player of all time. And you have an issue as this guy's, helping you win rings and building a legacy in Cleveland. And now you're playing with Kevin Durant. If he thinks he's going to be the number one option there, newsflash for you, that's going to be a hard no, right? So you really think Kyrie wants to be the number 3 option on a Brooklyn Net team that, he apparently chose very wisely when he wanted to leave Boston and, he didn't like the way things were working out in Boston. Maybe he saw Jason Tatum was flourishing or about to. Jaylen Brown's there. Marcus Smart is there. They got a good young team going there. And Kyrie likes to be the guy. So I think they end up working a trade for a big man rather than another guard to end up working with Kyrie. If it is another guard, it's probably going to be a guy like Bradley Beal, who, again, give me Bradley Beal on my basketball team 10 days, 100 times a week over Kyrie Irving. That's just my take. I'd much rather a guy like Bradley Beal on my team than Kyrie, not only on the court, but in the locker room, of course. But if they do end up acquiring Bradley Beal, I could see something like that working a lot better than with James Harden. Unless things have changed where we're playing with multiple basketballs on the court, it doesn't work. James Harden leads the league in ISO percentage every single year, without a doubt, and it's not even close. Like no one comes to within 1 or 2%. I mean, this guy leads the league in isolation percentage, meaning he just dribbles the ball on his own on offense, no passes, etc. And he leads the league by 10 to 15% every single year, more than the second-ranked player. So you're bringing in a guy like that into an offense. KD is still going to do his thing. I mean, we saw what KD did with the Warriors when he ended up taking over their second championship when he was there, of course. Steph and Klay kind of ended up taking the back seat. And can Steph Curry take over a final series? Yeah, no kidding. I mean, he's done it time in, time out throughout his career. I mean, they've been to, 5 or 6 finals by now? Klay has shown that he could drop 37 and a quarter against Kevin Durant's OKC team. So
And
Klay
not
Thompson
dribble
can do it
once.
too. And not dribble more than
once.
5 times. This guy drops 37 and a quarter. You think he can take over? Yeah, but these guys are unselfish basketball players. They know that they're there to win titles. They're there to build a legacy, right? Unless things have changed, Kyrie Irving has never been that guy throughout his career, and I really don't think it's going to start anytime soon. So my hypothetical trade that I had here to present to you was a 3-way trade between Houston, Philadelphia, and Brooklyn, where Brooklyn ends up acquiring Joel Embiid and possibly other pieces. We'd have to move that across.
Let's go. Let's go. We're blowing it up. Let's go, Ghost.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So we have Joel Embiid going to Brooklyn. Okay.
Yeah. James Harden goes to Philadelphia to reunite with Mike D'Antoni.
Mm-hmm. No. Daryl Morey. Mike D'Antoni's in Brooklyn.
Daryl Morey. Sorry.
Yep. You're good.
And Houston gets guys like Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, Taurean Prince, every single one of these guys. And they just load up on a bunch of assets. Multiple first-round picks are going to be involved. But the primary pieces there are going to be basically that young Brooklyn supporting cast, I guess we could call it, because although they ran the team last year, Kevin Durant and Kyrie were both gone. Yeah. So guys like Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, all these guys that we saw in the bubble, Taurean Prince, maybe even Spencer Dinwiddie gets involved in this trade as well. So call that the Brooklyn core 4 of this trade, with James Harden going to reunite with Daryl Morey in Philadelphia, and then you have Joel Embiid going the other way to Brooklyn.
Damn. That's
something. A blockbuster. That's a blockbuster.
Is absolutely something. Yeah, a blockbuster to say the least, man. I mean, I would be interested in it. I'm here for it. I mean, as I said, the NBA offseason is more fun than the actual season itself. So that would be something. Joel Embiid, I think that would be a lot of fun. He'll go small during the playoffs, as he always does, but that's why you have Kevin Durant there. Kyrie Irving will say some weird shit, so I think that'll be fun. So I think Brooklyn will be a blast. Houston, yeah, they're kind of SOL at this point. If everyone wants to leave, we'll get to Russ in a second. They have to acquire picks because they pretty much just... Daryl Morey knew he had 1 year left on his contract and was just like, let's see do you want 5 first-round picks? Like, yeah, sure, here, take them. I don't give a shit. I'm not going to be here next year. So Houston is in some kind of trouble. If they get rid of James Harden, they get rid of Russell Westbrook, they're going to have to get some picks back in some capacity. Yeah. As you said, with those young players as well, that probably doesn't hurt. I don't know if that would give them the playoffs in the West, but I think it would be interesting. And then Philadelphia getting James Harden. I'm here for it. I'm here for Philadelphia getting James Harden.
I was really thinking about this before we came on, because I knew we wanted to talk some hypothetical trades, and I was like, man, this one, I don't know. I think it makes sense for all parties involved. Brooklyn gets the big man that they need. They're going to need a guy to replace Jarrett Allen, because no matter what third star that they want to team up with Kyrie and KD, Jarrett Allen's probably going to be involved in that trade, right? I don't foresee them getting a guy like Bradley Beal or Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons or any of these guys that have even been rumored to be on the move. They're not getting him without moving Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen.
Yeah,
Taurean Prince and Spencer Dinwiddie also likely on the move in a trade like that. So they're going to need a big man to be able to support KD and Kyrie, pretty much just gather the rebounds there for them. And, you know, if he could score, obviously Joel Embiid could score, but I'm talking about if they get a guy like Steven Adams or something like that, you basically need a guy that's going to go 10-10, right? So, but when you get a guy like Joel Embiid, that really changes things, because he could dominate the paint, and that opens up a lot of ISO play for KD and Kyrie. That could be really scary. James Harden instantly becomes the offense there in Philadelphia. Ben Simmons can become that point forward that they always wanted him to be. So the issue with Philadelphia is that the paint was always too clogged and they never had any shooters. I don't know if there's a better way to line up with Ben Simmons than to add a shooter like James Harden. Lord knows you're not getting Klay Thompson or Steph Curry. Get that idea out of your head. So is there a better offensive player that you want to pair with Ben Simmons right now than James Harden, who's rumored to be on the move? I don't think there is. So Ben Simmons gets to be more involved in the paint there. Still gets to run point when he wants to, so they could offset James Harden and Ben Simmons. If James Harden just wants to play ISO for 6 minutes when Ben Simmons is off the court, go ahead, have some fun, get your 24 points in 6 minutes. That way, you're still dropping 37 points on 10 of 30 shooting, whatever you end up doing. He still gets his stats. That's fine. But Ben Simmons really gets to take over the paint there and do what he does best. And then you look at the Houston side, we're talking about them getting first round picks back. Who's to say they keep any of these guys? Karis LeVert, Jarrett Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie. Almost all these guys can end up being
Flipped
traded again for a first round pick. You have guys like PJ Tucker who are likely going to get traded. They still have Robert Covington. They still have Eric Gordon. They still have Daniel House. They still have Austin Rivers. All of these guys are tradable pieces. Now all of a sudden you're sitting there in Houston with no picks till 2040, and now you have 10 to 12 legit trading material players that you could end up flipping for some picks back. So that was the hypothetical that I thought of. Maybe it comes to fruition, maybe it doesn't, but I would love to see James Harden over there in Philly and Joel Embiid joining KD and Kyrie. Oof, talk about a villain team right there.
Oh yeah, they would be the villain, and Kyrie will screw it up somehow. But Ghost, my favorite part of all of this is with James Harden going to Philadelphia, it guarantees they can't win a championship. Yeah. It absolutely guarantees it. You're telling me James Harden, after all the players he's had and everything he's done in Houston, always coming up short. Now he pairs up with Ben Simmons, and that's what's going to get them the championship? Absolutely not.
Well,
I'm 100% here for that.
The one common factor in all of that is that all these guys want to go out to the East. The East blows. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to go play in the East. Who wants to play a healthy Golden State Warriors team right now? Mm-hmm. I know I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to play them. And then, okay, let's say we beat Golden State in 4, 5, 6, 7. Even the NBA gives you a bonus 8th or 9th game. Whatever you need to do to beat Golden State. Then you're going up against LeBron and AD in the West.
Well,
are you kidding me?
LeBron.
Is that what we're moving on to?
Not yet. We're going up against LeBron. I mean,
you're going up
or
against
the Clippers,
Warriors, and then you're possibly going up against the Claw in Kawhi Leonard in LA. Then you stay in the same stadium, and then you're possibly playing LeBron. You're possibly playing Nikola Jokic and my boy Jamal Murray. Devin Booker is going to do work in the West too. Yep. I mean, the path to the finals in the West right now is so hard. And of course, I'm not going to forget mentioning Damian Lillard and those Portland Trailblazers. They could wreak havoc in the playoffs too as an 8 or 7 seed. The path to the playoffs there is so hard. Whereas in the East, you have teams like the Orlando Magic who went 1-81 last season and still ended up making the playoffs?
Give or take, yeah. Plus or minus.
Give or take. I mean, how is that? The Brooklyn Nets had a G League squad playing in the bubble and they still made the playoffs. I mean, why would you not want to go to the East there where it's like, hey, I can pretty much coast throughout the regular season, still wind up with a top 4 seed and end up hosting a playoff series. And then it's pedal to the metal in the playoffs and just end up trying to win a championship.
It'll be interesting. I like it, Ghost.
James Harden to Philadelphia.
I like
it. Embiid to Brooklyn.
I'm here for it. The villain squad. Oh,
and the Knicks fans are still going to end up crying because now you have the other New York team that's just taking over your franchise, but that's okay.
Don't feel bad for them. They're probably Yankees fans too, so don't feel that bad for them. They're just fine. So I like it, Ghost. I like it. I didn't know you were coming with that trade. I think it's fantastic. You check off my box of Philadelphia can't win a championship, so whatever it takes, man, I am here for it. So I think that is great.
That was the deciding factor.
I know it was. You're talking to me. You know me good. You know me well. You know me well. The other side of that Rockets opportunity, right? James Harden seems like he's gone. We'll see where he goes. Russell Westbrook, the one place immediately after Russell Westbrook said, "Hey, I'm interested in getting traded." One of the pieces of news that came up was the Clippers already want to get rid of Paul George. He was so bad in the playoffs. They're like, "Wait, Russell Westbrook? We would rather that guy over this dickhead." Straight up, Paul George for Russell Westbrook? Does that no? Yeah, me neither.
I wouldn't. I mean, I'm not saying no that it won't happen. I'm saying that's it. If I'm LA, I'm hanging up the phone so fast as if it's a prank call that's a hard no for me. I'm that. No elaborating for me. I'm just not taking that trade. I could see Russ going over to the Knicks. I mean, I've heard that rumor getting some traction. And
is a perfect Knicks move. That is so Knicks. Yes, I'm here for that too.
So Knicks, and then on top of that, drafting an international player in the first round that would top off 2020 Knicks version right there. So
bingo.
Give me Russ to the Knicks where he can be a one-man show, dropping 30-point triple doubles on 10 of 40 shooting with quadruple doubles with 10 turnovers if that were to count. So give me Russ to the Knicks there. And you know what? Honestly,
the Knicks go 29 and 72 games this year, whatever that math. 29 and 41 or whatever.
They might still make the playoffs because of
that's true.
They might still make the playoffs because of the East, but yeah, I like Russ there. All jokes aside, as much as we're picking on Russ right now, I do like that move there. He's got to be the guy in the franchise, and you know what? As much as everyone's constantly hating on this guy for he doesn't win in the big moments or he doesn't knock down big shots, this and that, he still averaged a triple double per season. What he's done throughout his career is simply amazing. So he's the type of guy that he may never win an NBA championship, but he's a guy that can bring fans into the arena. And you know what, Knicks fan, as much as we're picking on Knicks fans too, and Yankees fans, we have so many New York guys with the Win Daily Sports team too. So it's all in good fun. But the Knicks deserve somebody like Russell Westbrook to be able to buy a Knick jersey and know that you know what, I got Westbrook on my back, and he's a guy that's gonna bring fans into the arena. Hopefully, we end up getting there with the pandemic, where even if it's 25% full, I guarantee you MSG is going to be 25% full. They're gonna max it out to whatever the allowed capacity is, and Knicks fans do deserve that. I mean, having a guy like Frank Ntilikina, or however you pronounce
I like it. I like, nice try, but I like it.
That's like you lost Kristaps Porzingis. I don't know. Knicks. I would love to see a Westbrook and Robinson pick and roll game going there and just bring some energy back. Hopefully Knox ends up taking the next step in his career too, and of course fellow Canadian RJ Barrett. So
you're getting all the Canadians in on this one, Ghost, huh?
Have to. It's our first show.
Murray, you got RJ Barrett. We talked about Ben Simmons.
It's like Sia with RG3.
That's true.
It's like Sia with RG3 at this point. So
I like that.
The Knicks deserve to have, I guess I could say, a bona fide superstar. If I'm being on the nicer side, I mean, I'll throw him that bone, even though he's not anymore. The Knicks deserve to have a well-known name in the league, and you know what, Russ is a good fit there. He's going to be the guy. I like Russ for the Knicks.
It would be fun. It would be perfect. The Knicks need Westbrook. Westbrook needs the Knicks. Appreciate the comment there. Top notch. It's true.
Perfect description.
Yeah, it's perfect. I'm here for it. I think it would screw up everything that they're trying to do, which I'm here for even more. I think it's hysterical living here in the New York City market, listening to sports talk radio and hearing how bad the Knicks are. I think it's hysterical, especially if something like Joel Embiid went to the Brooklyn Nets, only a train ride away. I would be all for that. Couple more things here. One, I just want to touch upon. Old friend of yours, DeMar DeRozan, did sign his player option for like $27 million. Shout out DeMar DeRozan for making $27 million this year. That is awesome. Good for him. Probably going to get traded, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Pop was like, nah, fuck it. We'll run it back. Let's see. Mid-range jump shots. We got all of them. So we'll see what happens there. Last thing before we head to the draft, which is November 18th, only a couple days away. Anthony Davis opted out. Avery Bradley opted out. Rajon Rondo opted out. Danny Green traded. Why doesn't anyone want to play with LeBron anymore? Dude wins a championship. He makes sure that AD comes over, and AD's already like, see you later. I'm going to Chicago. I don't need this shit anymore. I won my chip. I'm good. I want to get paid money. Crazy, right?
It is, because look, we're joking for all you Lakers fans out there that are listening right now. Just a formality that AD is going to resign, but hey, you never know. KD said that he would resign with the Warriors, and he signed a bunch of these 1-and-1 deals, meaning he signs a 1-year deal, and then the second year is a player option, meaning he could opt out over and over and over again, just securing the bag there and just collecting the checks, right? So I feel like this is a year-to-year thing now with AD, depending on how long LeBron's end up staying in the league and pretty much what he's looking like. I feel like he's going to be like this till the day that he retires. I don't even think a LeBron decline exists right now. So certainly not in 2020. So AD's going to resign there. Avery Bradley, I'm hearing to the Warriors or Bucks or Miami, like a lot of these contending teams, veteran guy that could end up playing, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes. He's a guy that you could throw out there similarly to an Andre Iguodala, where not necessarily an offensive juggernaut to say the least there, but he's a guy that could lock somebody up in a 7-game playoff series and still produce. I mean, people tend to forget what he was like out there in Boston, and he was that shutdown defender before Marcus Smart took over that role, right? So Avery Bradley to a contender definitely makes sense. A little bit of beef going on right now with possibly accepting a ring from LA, possibly not. And now he's talking about signing with Milwaukee, Golden State, or Miami. So Avery Bradley, if you're out there, just take the ring from LA
Take
at
the
this
ring,
point
man.
because it sounds like you're chasing it regardless, bro. But just take it and try and get a second one. But I'm curious to see what Rajon Rondo does. Even with LA, he signed very late last offseason. It was more so like a like, you know, let me wait and see, use the money where you can, etc. And he was kind of the last man in there. So wouldn't surprise me to see Rondo back with LA. But if he does end up going elsewhere, it's likely to another contender. So AD's staying with the Lakers. That's pretty much a foregone conclusion to me. AB Bradley, I could see him going to another contending team. If Giannis ends up staying with Milwaukee, I could see him possibly going there, you know, replacing a guy like Kyle Korver off the bench. So possibly going out there to Milwaukee, and Milwaukee front office possibly justifying that as a, you know, big offseason acquisition to keep Giannis when your big offseason acquisition is acquiring AB Bradley. But anyways, and then Rondo, I would love to see him run it back with LA. He was a great fit there, but of course the Caruso.
Yes.
The Caruso is going to end up eating his minutes, but give me 10 to 15 minutes of Rajon Rondo. I absolutely love him. He was one of my favorite players growing up, and definitely will miss him if he's possibly even retiring. You never know with a guy like that, right? So no better way for a guy like that to possibly go out on top with a championship ring on his finger. But I would love to see him running it back with LA and give us some vintage Rondo triple doubles out there.
That was fun, man. And yeah, shout out to Rajon Rondo. Do your thing, man. He's got a couple rings now, so well deserved. He's done his thing, and it's pretty impressive how long and considering how bad he also looked, and then came out into the bubble, was hurt for like a first couple weeks, right, and then didn't just showed up in the playoffs, and all of a sudden was just like, oh hey guys, I'm like Rajon Rondo from 2012. Like, nice to meet you again. And he was awesome.
In 15 minutes.
He was awesome. He was fun to watch. So shout out to him. And yeah, I mean, hey, I think he'll go get paid somewhere one last time, make a couple bucks, and go on the way. And I think it's interesting, as you said, with the AD stuff, you know, hey, he's probably just going to sign like 1-and-1s, 2-and-1s. That was an awesome idea until, you know, the pandemic, unfortunately. So now if the whole reason signing those for Kevin Durant and for everyone around him was just like, all right, I'm going to sign this contract.
And just get more money.
Then I'm going to opt out. Then I'm going to sign for more money because I can. And then I'm going to opt out. And now it's just like, well, the salary cap hasn't gone up. It might end up going down. And then because of the amount of games is limited, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to say the least. I still think it's a good idea. I also love how much the NBA players hold the NBA by the balls. They're just like, we can do literally whatever we want. I don't want to be on the Lakers today. I'm just going to leave, or I'm going to ask you and tell you, trade me, because I don't want to be here. So I think that part's pretty cool. It's awesome to see how empowered they are to pretty much do whatever they want. Like, I don't understand why people get angry at them for it, but it is what it is. All right, let's move on to the draft. A couple more minutes here on the Win Daily Sports. I guess it's the draft fantasy preview, but it's really the off-season fantasy preview at this point. I think that part's pretty important. So we have three top players. It looks like consensus top 3 overall. We have LaMelo Ball, obviously son of the biggest baller of them all. We have James Wiseman. We have Anthony Edwards. We have Minnesota holding that number 1 overall pick. Our friend Mitchell, tennis writer here at Win Daily Sports from Minnesota, loves the Timberwolves. I just want him to be happy. He's a good dude. Just let him be happy for once. We have Golden State with the number 2 overall pick, which is just absolutely crazy. And then who's the third? Is Charlotte? Charlotte might be number 3. I don't know. Some random ass team nobody really cares about. They're going to suck. It doesn't matter. How do you think this thing shakes out? I've heard some real interesting things. I've heard SGA for the number 1 overall pick. And you're like, wait, why would you do that? And Ghost, you said it. Like, why would you, if their window is 3 to 5 years out, do you want to start paying SGA next year a whole shit ton of money when you can say, hey, maybe we can run it back with LaMelo Ball. We just got all these other dudes. We have a million other picks. I don't know. That's something. Obviously, the number 2 overall pick, I think, is the most interesting because Golden State is in win now mode for the next 3 or 4 years. That number 1 overall pick or number 2 overall pick, I mean, I don't care who it is. He's 19 years old, 18, 20 years old. He's not going to be good for a couple more years. So what the hell's the point there? Who do they trade that for? And then there's Charlotte. So whatever. How do you feel about those top 2 overall picks? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think the draft order is going to be, especially up at the top? What are you feeling?
Well, the first thing that I will say on that SGA trade is that's a hard no. If I'm Sam Presti, because everything that we just did goes out the window. And as much as they see that's exactly what I was about to say. A lot of people are going to say, well, why? You don't trade a guy that you know is going to be a good player in this league potentially a superstar based on what he showed last season for a guy that you think might end up panning out because you get to only pay him 3 to 4 years down the line versus SGA, you got to pay him next year. That to me is a big no-no. That's playing with fire, especially when you're trading a younger player. Like let me flip the script here. Let's say SGA, for sake of conversation, if SGA was as good as Devin Booker and Devin Booker just turned 24 years old, would you trade Devin Booker for first overall because you don't want to pay the man next year?
No.
That to me is like that conversation doesn't even happen.
Does SGA look as good as Devin Booker looked?
That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that you got to give SGA time. Yeah, you got to give SGA some time.
I completely agree.
SGA is really young, and this guy, yes, he looked very timid in the playoffs last season. But if we're making decisions based on one playoff round, then Paul George should be traded for a second round pick and some basketballs. Like if that's what we're basing decisions on. So I'm looking at the grander scheme of things here and saying that, you know what, I've loved what I've seen from SGA, and I would not trade him for LaMelo Ball. I think LaMelo Ball is going to be a very good player, even better than Lonzo is right now. I mean, he's got the scoring touch that's there. As long as he ends up working on his jump shot a little bit more, he's a guy that he's shown. I mean, everyone's seen these YouTube videos, right? He could hit. He can hit threes from half court and this and that. But I'm talking about his in-game shot, mid-range jump shot. If he could really work on that, his vision is already elite. So as a primary ball handler, I love that pick for Minnesota. For me, what ends up coming down to the decision for the T-Wolves is that, do they see D'Angelo Russell as their point guard of the future? Or do they go with a more traditional point guard? I guess we could call him that. It's too early. You never want to put a label like that on a guy that's not even in the league, let alone a kid that's not even 20 years old yet. But do you want to put your faith into a more natural tended point guard like LaMelo Ball? Or do you want D'Lo to end up running the pick and roll with Karl Anthony Towns for who knows how many years from now, right? So for me, I do think they end up going LaMelo Ball. I don't think James Wiseman is really in contention there. Obviously, that would be a massive logjam with Karl Anthony Towns, unless they plan on, blowing up this trade opening day, I guess we call it. It's not trade deadline day, but opposite of trade deadline day. If they end up, possibly moving Karl Anthony Towns out of nowhere where nobody saw this coming out of left field, then, I mean, I guess you could consider James Wiseman there, but 0.001% chance that ends up happening. I really do think they end up going LaMelo Ball there. The key for me with the Warriors number 2 is really, can they end up getting a guy that they really want? So I don't think they're going to end up trading the number 2 pick just for the sake of trading it. I don't think they're going to say, hey, we're in win now mode, let's trade the number 2 pick for, I heard like moving down to, I think Phoenix ends up picking anyways, in the teens. I forget the exact number, but it's in between the 8 and 12 range. They're like, let's trade number 2 for Kelly Oubre and number 10 or 12 or wherever Phoenix is picking. That to me is it's not a beneficial trade for the Warriors, right? That number 2 pick holds so much value that they want to end up getting a guy like Bradley Beal. They want to end up getting possibly a guy like Giannis. They're in the talks of working with Giannis, right? So if they could do big things with that number 2 pick, then I would expect them moving it. And I can foresee something like what we saw with Trae Young and Luka Doncic on that night, where if somebody's not really sure who they want with number 2, or the Charlotte ends up moving up to get the guy that they want, then the Warriors could end up drafting James Wiseman, but it's not necessarily that they're going to end up keeping him and he'll be on the active roster. They might move James Wiseman and a pick to Charlotte, so they'll give James Wiseman and a supplemental pick to Charlotte. Charlotte ends up trading number 3, who will likely be Anthony Edwards, and a bunch of other stuff, Andrew Wiggins and Kevon Looney and other pieces there, to Washington for Bradley Beal, to Milwaukee for Giannis, to any one of these teams, right? So I could see a trade like that possibly happening, where the Warriors end up drafting James Wiseman, flipping him to Charlotte, plus a supplemental pick, because obviously they need Anthony Edwards as part of the trade. If the other team wants Anthony Edwards, they're going to do whatever they need to trade back to get Anthony Edwards. So James Wiseman and a supplemental pick to Charlotte, who they desperately need a big man. They still have their backcourt there with Terry Rozier and Devontae Graham. And then they end up trading Anthony Edwards, or whoever that team basically wants to pick with number 3, with multiple assets, Andrew Wiggins, Kevon Looney, that Minnesota Timberwolves second-round pick, who's pretty much like a borderline first-round pick at that point. and other pieces as such to get a bona fide superstar. So
yeah, I think
that's the way that I would see it playing out.
the Warriors also have the Timberwolves 2021 unprotected, or like top.
Top three protected,
Is
I
it
believe.
okay?
Yeah,
So it's
top.
still a very, very valuable asset. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm a draft nick, but I will say I pay attention to people that are. They say this draft is relatively tame in terms of talent. It's next year and the year after that could be two of the much, much better drafts. So that Warriors pick next year is probably more coveted than the Golden State Warriors pick this year. So I think that's just an interesting thing to point out. One thing I would say is, especially if they do go LaMelo Ball, again, the only thing I know about him is his dad's kind of a dickhead. That's pretty much all I got. And his brother's okay at the NBA. Pretty solid, I'd say. But no defense will be played for the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2021 in that case. Like, it's going to be nuts. D'Angelo Russell sucks on defense. Karl Anthony Towns, for as big a dude as he is, doesn't seem to care, doesn't seem to want to play defense. We saw Jimmy Butler was just like, dude, just give me effort. No one gave him effort. He's like, all right, F you guys. I'm going to go try and win somewhere else. And he ended up doing it, which was kind of cool. So it's crazy, man. I think the Golden State Warriors, I totally agree with you, right? Like Danilo Gallinari, they going to trade the number 2 overall pick for Danilo Gallinari and some junk? Like, I don't think that's going to happen, right? So I think like the number 2 overall pick is kind of like you're playing with house money, right? They got it because they were so bad. So, okay, instead of being really good and having it be the 28th overall pick where they wouldn't have done anything with it anyway, they have the number 2 overall pick. What's the problem? I agree with you. They shouldn't just throw it away for nothing. Worst case scenario, they get James Wiseman. Okay. What does the dude look like in a couple years? What if he can contribute off the bench a little bit this year? We know they're going to blow people the hell out of the water. What if in 2 years, the dude actually looks pretty solid, as you were talking about before? Clay and Steph aren't going to be healthier or alive forever. I don't know. Like, I think it would be kind of cool to actually just be able to say, like, hey, like, we actually have a player of the future. Even better case scenario, next year, the dude looks pretty competent. They flip him for something else next year if they need it, right? Like, I don't think they should. I totally agree with you. Don't just throw it away and give it away for nothing. Actually try and do something. Like, maybe take Anthony Edwards or James Wiseman, whoever you think. There's that kid out of Israel that's getting a lot of draft buzz. I can't say his name. I don't know. There's also kid out of USC. I don't know.
No, he went to Iowa State.
Yeah,
I know who you're talking about.
Some dude, he's got like 12 feet of arms. Like, I don't know. That's all it is. Something like that. And like, he could be a potential actual useful asset. So, I mean, worst case scenario, you take the pick, you get a player that's highly rated in the draft, and maybe next year you flip him for something else. Maybe in 2 years he turns out to be something. How would it surprise you on planet Earth that you know the Warriors take someone and it turns out the guy's incredible, whoever it is, and by like halfway through the season he's already contributing at a relatively high level for a 19-year-old? Like, would that surprise you at all in the least?
It really wouldn't.
Right? Like, it would be so Warriors.
In a situation like that, I would love for it to be Anthony Edwards. Personally, I think Anthony Edwards is the best player in this draft. I think he will have a better NBA career than LaMelo Ball. And just the raw talent for Anthony Edwards, he could play the 2, he could play the wing. He's just so athletic that I love him in that spot, and he could really flourish in that offense. The one and only reason why I think Golden State would hesitate on drafting him is people underestimate how much they love guys like Jordan Poole and Damian Lee in that backcourt. So with that, it would create a bit of a logjam with so surprisingly to throw guys like Damian Lee and Jordan Poole in that mix. But 4 guards already on that roster. You have Steph, you have Clay, you have Jordan Poole, and then you have Damian Lee, of course, Damian Lee quietly had a really good season this year with Steph and Clay out, right? So I think that kind of caught them by surprise. And I think they're more confident in their depth than the rest of the media is right now. I feel like a lot of people end up, kind of roasting the Warriors a bit, saying they need a bench, back in their, they say back in their championship run as if the window's closed. It was
2 years ago.
No, it was barely 24 months ago. Like these guys went to 5 or 6 finals in a row. So the Warriors window is still wide open, let alone not even closing anytime soon. So they had Andre Iguodala off the bench. They had other guys contributing, whereas now it's really Steph, Clay, and Draymond that are there. It's not like they have, they don't have an Andrew Bogut who's a real like defensive center, who a paint stopper or anything like that, right? So That's where the Warriors kind of end up taking a bit more heat than they deserve, in my opinion. But I really do think that they're more confident in their depth than everyone is on the Warriors' depth themselves. So Damian Lee and Jordan Poole could both produce off the bench. So it's the only reason why I think they don't go Anthony Edwards. But if they want the best player in this draft, I would take Anthony Edwards over James Wiseman. The days of big man center are pretty much on their way out, if not already gone. I mean, you saw that Atlanta's possibly trying to already trade Clint Capella, and I think he played a total of maybe 30 seconds in that uniform. And
did he even get on the floor? I don't even think he made it on the floor, right?
I think he made it for like not even 30 seconds, and then he ended up getting injured, or he was already injured and he didn't. I think he was just in practice, but now they're already discussing possibly trading a guy like that and running John Collins at the 5, right? So just gives you an idea that when you're loaded with shooting talent, you basically need a guy that could go out there and rebound. So the days of having these 7-foot centers that really can't move, I don't know if that's the future. So really curious to see what the Warriors do if they go James Wiseman or Anthony Edwards, if they do end up keeping that pick. But again, really wouldn't surprise me to see kind of a 3-way trade. It's more of a draft day trade.
Do you have another one for me?
I don't know if I want to say Giannis to the Warriors. I feel like that would be 10 times worse than KD going there. But right now, from what I'm looking at today, with all the rest of the media, they've seemed relatively quiet, and you know what, that to me seems like something big is coming, because if they were to make small splashes, then everybody would be kind of tipping their hat to them and saying like, hey, we know exactly what direction the Warriors are going right now. The fact that the Warriors are keeping everybody in the dark right now, look out. Something big is coming. I don't never doubt Bob Myers and that front office. Something really big is coming for that Warriors team.
I think they're going to do something fun. I think I switched back. Like, I hated the Warriors. Now I kind of want to see them be good again because they had that year off because KD ended up leaving. Now I'm kind of like, well, actually, this might be fun. Let's see. Like, let's remember Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time. And it's really not even close. And then Klay Thompson is like kind of a top 5 greatest shooter of all time as well. Like, let's not forget what that happened. And I think the pandemic and the bubble and kind of pushing the season off now to December, I mean, it's been a while since we saw them on the floor together, right? It was the NBA Finals. So yep. June of 2019.
Klay ended up tearing his ACL.
Right? June of 2019, I think at that point. How many months ago is that now? It's almost 18 months ago at this point. Like, that's a long time. I think we forgot. And I'm kind of excited to see it happen again because their offense is a thing of beauty and it's so much fun to watch, but we will see. So Ghostman.
If ever you find yourself hating the Warriors, watch their series versus Denver. They played them back-to-back years. Don't quote me if in case it's wrong. It's either 2007, 2008, 2009. Or 2008, 2009, 2009, 2010. Anyways, 2007 to 2010, back-to-back years, they ended up playing the Denver Nuggets in the first round. And then that's when you really saw Steph Curry kind of take over that backcourt from Monte Ellis. And that was really fun to watch. And then again, if you're still not convinced with possibly hating the Warriors, put aside all the KD stuff and all that other stuff, go and watch Baron Davis and Josh Richardson in 2006, 2007. Yes. And you will absolutely love those high-flying Warriors. So all love for that organization. Absolutely love them. Other than my Raptors, definitely a Warriors fan. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Baron Davis and Josh Richardson were the first duo that I loved growing up. It was those two, and of course Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire out there in Phoenix. So that was fun to watch too.
High flying, fun offenses. Isn't that crazy? That's what kids like, huh? Would you look at that? Yeah, I think I'm back on the Warriors. We'll see what happens. December can come soon enough, but in a couple days, we do have the draft November 18th. I hope everybody will be watching. Ghostman, this was an absolute pleasure as always. Excited to get back into the swing of things with you. Coming up shortly, we're going to have our daily, weekly, monthly shows, it looks like. So I'm very excited about that. In case everyone wants to ask you some questions, maybe on the internet, where could they find you?
At DFS_Ghost over on Twitter, and of course with the Win Daily Sports family. Make sure you come and join our Discord. It is free for at least 7 days on your trial basis, and you're guaranteed to love it. It's a family vibe in there, and everyone's always helping each other out, winning some money on sports betting and in daily fantasy sports and DFS, DraftKings, FanDuel, Super Draft, you name it, we're on it. We got you covered.
We got you covered. You can find me at Michael Brazil1. As Ghost was saying, yes, windailysports.com/chat, CHAT, 7 free days in that expert Discord chat. Make sure to come hang out with us. NBA season is right around the corner. When is the draft? The draft is November 18th.
Wednesday.
Yes, 2 more days. So enjoy the show as much as you can. Make sure to follow us at Win Daily Sports. And we appreciate the heck out of each and every one of you. Thank you for everybody in the chat. We're excited for that. The chat was always my favorite part. So I'm excited to get back in the swing of things with the chat as well. Appreciate each and every one of you. For Ghost, for myself, for the rest of the Win Daily Sports family, we hope you all make it a very profitable NBA season. Yeah, I don't know. We went football with that one. Make it a very profitable.
And bets on the draft.
Yeah, we could bet on the draft. I think that would be fun. All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you.